The USS Pueblo is a spy ship that was captured by North Korea in 1968, sparking the 11th month-long Pueblo crisis. Here is that ship built in Minecraft, and I want to tell you a little bit more about it. Built in 1944 by the US Navy under the designation FS-344, the USS Pueblo was one of 3 Kamano-class cargo ships that were later officially converted into Banner-class environmental research ships. However, their true purpose was signals intelligence gathering as part of the AGR program. The Department of Defense was looking to replace the existing AGTR and TAG intelligence ships, and these cargo ships were the best fit, being smaller, more maneuverable, more responsive, and cheaper. The NSA wanted to have 25, and though they've reduced this number, agreeing with the Navy to produce 15 in total, only 3 were made at the end. The USS Banner was the first of these, converted in 1965. It had several encounters with Soviet Navy ships, as it was mainly stationed in the Pacific, but fear of reciprocity ultimately prevented them from attacking the Banner. It was sold to Japan and scrapped after only a few years in 1970. The USS Palm Beach was converted between 1966 and 1967, being used for signals intelligence in the Mediterranean and North Atlantic, and was decommissioned in December of 1969. It had a much more interesting tale, eventually being sold to a private owner and used for drug smuggling, and is now a scuba dive wreck in the Cayman Islands. If you'd like for me to build that and explore its history, then let me know down in the comments. Now, for the Pueblo. It was converted into a Banner class in 1967, delayed due to budgetary reasons. Unfortunately, these budget cuts would cause some major issues later on, mainly related to the engine, lack of a scuttling system, and less efficient incinerators for destroying classified documents. Additionally, despite the Vice Chief of Naval Operations advocating that every ship be able to defend themselves, the attempted installation of a 3-inch 50 caliber gun was denied by the commanding officer, Lloyd Booker, because he argued it would have reduced the stability of the ship. After sailing to Yokosuka, Japan, the commanding regional officer of the Navy in Japan gave them 2 M2 Browning 50 caliber machine guns, though they were placed in less than optimal positions by Booker, who put them as far away as possible from where he was on the bridge, specifically on the exposed positions at the stern and bow with no nearby ammo lockers. Despite the complete lack of safety and security, the Pueblo went on patrol in early January of 1968. This would ultimately be its last mission. The ship was ordered to look for and conduct surveillance on any Soviet Navy activity in the Strait of Tsushima in between Korea and Japan. Additionally, it would be gathering intelligence from North Korea. However, whereas the Soviets had been doing their own operations in an attempt to collect data near the US, North Korea had not, leaving them much more free from any retribution than Russia was. The Pueblo had several encounters with foreign craft, in particular a North Korean Soviet-style submarine chaser on the 20th of January, as well as 2 North Korean fishing trawlers on the 22nd. However, the 23rd of January was the Pueblo's last patrol date. One of the submarine chasers challenged the nationality of the Pueblo, which in turn raised the US flag. After being ordered to stand down or be fired upon, she attempted to leave, but was far slower and less maneuverable than the submarine chaser, and multiple warning shots were fired. After this, 4 torpedo boats, 2 MiG-21 fighters, and another submarine chaser all appeared and joined the hunt. The 50 caliber machine guns were not used at all, with almost none of the crew having much experience with them, and they were covered in tarps made freezing cold by the ocean spray, requiring 10 minutes to even warm up. The North Korean ships then attempted to board the Pueblo. During this 2-hour period, the North Korean ships began firing at the Pueblo, though not many sailors were wounded. Additionally, the crew began to destroy as much classified material as they could, but thanks to the earlier budget cuts, there were no efficient incinerators, but ultimately only a small percentage of this material was destroyed. The Pueblo was also in active contact with the Naval Support Facility in Kamisea, Japan, and the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise was just over 500 nautical miles away, but neither had air support ready, and though it was promised, help never arrived. The ship was forced into North Korean waters, with 1 man being killed in the skirmish, and it was boarded, with the men being blindfolded and beaten. Here's where the main dispute comes in. The US claimed that the Pueblo never strayed within 12 nautical miles of North Korean land, which was the international standard for territorial waters at the time. However, North Korea claimed that there were 17 points which were breached, not to mention that they claimed a 50 nautical mile sea boundary. Either way, the Pueblo was captured, confirmed several days later by a CIA A-12 Oxcart spy plane, showing it to be in Wonsan Harbor on the eastern coast of North Korea. There was a very split response among US government officials, with some wanting to go as far as threatening nuclear attack, while others warned for President Lyndon Johnson to remain calm lest the hostages be killed. Ultimately, it was decided there would be 5 initial responses. Air and naval forces would be deployed, reconnaissance flights would continue to be made, military reserves would be called and have their terms of service extended, the incident would be called out within the United Nations, and President Johnson would call the Soviet statement Alexei Kosygin. Interestingly enough, the Soviets were also surprised by the move, and were in fact worried about the potential for war, though the US did not know this at the time. The aftermath of this incident was known as the Pueblo crisis. 82 men were held in North Korean POW camps for 11 months, being starved and tortured both physically and psychologically. However, the prisoners still protested in their own ways. For example, in many staged propaganda pictures taken of them, they are flipping off the camera, though they told the North Koreans that the sign meant good luck in Hawaii. Additionally, when Commander Lloyd Booker was forced to write a confession, he wrote, "We peon the DPRK. We peon their great leader Kim Il-sung." For context, peon is a type of praise or admiration, but the officials who verified this did not catch the pronunciation. Negotiations were frustrating, taking place at the village of Panmunjom just north of the DMZ. The South Koreans wanted to be involved and were highly cautious of what the Americans might do or say, while North Korea had a card catalog for specific questions. If there was nothing written for a particular question, it would have to be deferred to Pyongyang and answered at a later date. Ultimately, to secure the release of the prisoners, the US had to write an admission that the Pueblo had been spying, affirm that they would not continue to spy, and overall apologize. Despite the written apology being given right after a declaration that it was being performed simply to ensure the release of the prisoners, the North Korean government decided to finally release them exactly 11 months to the day after they had been captured, on December 23, 1968. All of the 82 men were taken to the DMZ and walked across what is known as the Bridge of No Return, taking the body of the man who had been killed during the initial capture, fireman Dwayne Hodges. Because of this incident, North Korea was able to reverse engineer the technology on the Pueblo, sharing this with the Soviet Union, and ultimately the communications devices were recreated. This is a good possibility why the Banner class had so few ships ultimately produced, as within several years of their production, the technology was already replicated and thus removed any sort of advantage in the espionage of the Cold War. This also furthered the divide between the USSR and DPRK, with Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev actually denouncing the capture of the Pueblo, and while they did not sever ties with North Korea, they were certainly angered by the incident. Today, North Korea still has the Pueblo in its possession. It was moved to Pyongyang in 1999 and was eventually moved in 2012 to the Pothongang Canal at the Fatherland Liberation War Museum, where tourists can board it and see artifacts as well as the secret code room. It is still in active service to prevent seizure, and is the second oldest commissioned vessel in the United States Navy after the USS Constitution. There have been attempted offers to repatriate the ship, but nothing concrete has come of this. There have also been multiple lawsuits, though actually getting the money from North Korea has proved to be fairly useless. So, how did I come to build this? Well, I had received the suggestion to do Pyongyang multiple times, getting comments on both YouTube and TikTok. I figured it might be an interesting build to do, so I spoke a bit with the main builder there, Ozzy, who has done a surprising amount despite the very low amount of data. I asked him what we should do, and he suggested either the Pueblo or the monument to party founding. And initially I suggested the monument, but it would have actually been much more difficult due to the angled satellite view, so we did the Pueblo. This is the first boat I have ever built in BTE, and it was surprisingly difficult. What I struggled with most was the outline. It was just such a different style from normal BTE building, and it wasn't like I could just make sure everything was parallel due to the map projection we use, as well as the shape of the vessel. Ozzy had done a basic outline beforehand, but we fixed it up somewhat, especially after I employed the help of BTE's resident boat builder, Diligent. He has done many of them, and they are his favorite type of build to do. At first I was just DMing him about it, asking for help with the general shape, but he eventually joined us on the BTE Korea server to help out. One of the biggest struggles we had was with the hull, as a lot of it had to be figured out using a model or an old picture of the Pueblo in dry dock. Obviously we had to drain the water in-game in order to fix this, but that was not too bad of a process. Ozzy did most of the detailing for the bow and midship, and the two of us detailed the stern, though Dill did help along the way, such as with the towers, though he mainly focused on the hull. Overall, reference data was very limited for the ship, just like data for the rest of Pyongyang, and it is one of the most difficult builds I've done. I am pretty satisfied with the results though. Thanks for watching. If you want to see State Farm Stadium built in Minecraft, check out this video, and don't forget to subscribe to see more Build the Earth content.